I didn't think that the university would grow so quickly, both in hardware, but more in its software, more in its people. So you open yourself to others, being slightly more outgoing than perhaps you would be normally, and listening to their stories. Because our understanding of the world is nothing more than a whole string of stories that we tell. So if you can understand what their stories are, then you're one step with one person closer to being able to understand how they think.
拥有着历史学、汉语言、工商管理和金融等多元交叉的学科背景，谭安厚教授始终在学者和实践者双重身份的引领下，探索人生的可能性。80年代初，他曾参与了中国第一所商学院的筹建，之后在香港从事银行业和咨询业长达7年。回归学术界，他先后来到港中大和港中大深圳任职，现任港中大深圳经管学院副教授。关于一所大学国际视野人才的培养，他给出了自己的答案。
Yes, well, I was very fortunate in the time that I was growing up and the time that I went to university. The process was rather unplanned. I'm very grateful that I was able to have the background in history, which is a subject that I really enjoyed. I first started university in 1970. So there was something called the counterculture that was going on. Our counterculture was a culture counter to monopoly capitalism, imperialism, very much influenced by Marxism, Marxism-Leninism, to some extent Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought. And so there was a fascination among young people in 1970 with non-standard philosophies and political philosophies. And I was part of that. And so I dropped out of school after 1 year of university and worked my way around Canada and then worked my way around the world. So it was 2 years of, if you like, open the door schooling. And then I went back to university. I've always been interested in politics. And as I mentioned, the influences of different political schools of thought that I studied while I was going through university. I've also always been interested in China. China is personally a part of my background. My mother was born in China. She was born in Canton. And so her Cantonese was excellent. But growing up in Western Canada, in Alberta, I found that fascinating because nothing made her happier than listening to and talking with Chinese. And so that was a very alive part of my background. At the University of Alberta, in Alberta, they introduced a Chinese language program. And then I applied for an exchange scholarship. And that's what got me into Beijing Language Institute in 1976. So I was lucky because I was fascinated with the subject and I slipped right in, notwithstanding my extremely bad Chinese. And so I spent a year in Beijing and then a year in Nanjing. Obviously, to anybody with the eyes to see, in 1978, the model for the economy of China was Hong Kong. Not just Hong Kong, but Hong Kong and Taiwan and South Korea and then Singapore, you know. So that was clearly the model. And so I thought, well, I'll go down to Hong Kong and I'll study for an MBA. And so I was accepted by the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and that basically then set my career path, because I was able, when I graduated from CUHK with an MBA, I was able to become a banker, an investment banker. I also was able to help the Department of Commerce, the United States government, set up a business school in North China. And then I did some years as a banker in Hong Kong and decided that basically I was an academic, not not a banker. And so I dropped that, and I became an academic. I again went to New York University and did my PhD. So that's what got me back into academics. I was in an unplanned path, but I've always been interested in academics. I've always been interested in political science and in history and in business. And so those are the themes that pull together my life and that brought me on my retirement to the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, when Xu Ning, who was then SME Dean, said, we need somebody to teach finance, to teach the basic courses in finance, and I'd like you to come over and do that. So that's what brought me in to teach the first cohort, the Fin 2010 course. So I taught everybody in those first two cohorts Fin 2010. And I'm still here. So it's been an enjoyable experience, and it's been fascinating to be at the startup of what I consider to be a great university. I think CUHK Shenzhen is a great university built on the tradition of Chinese University of Hong Kong. So it's been fun to be part of it. I didn't imagine when I first came here, and we were in the startup area, the Qidongqi, right? And we just had the old administration building and the Litianlo and those other factory buildings, converted factory buildings. I didn't think that the university would grow so quickly, both in hardware, but more in its software, more in its people. And that's, of course, thanks to support from the Shenzhen government, support from the group of people that originally set this place up, and obviously people like Xiong Wei, who's brought his tremendous prestige and recruiting ability to bring in really top-notch people. Xiang Sheng, who's put his soul into this university and who's been really keen to bring the students and bring the faculty and bring financing, bring resources into this campus. Right now we're in the position that is very enviable, and we're in an environment where we can hire global first-class people. And I think that we have an interesting and believable mission, and that's part of our success, I think. When the Shenzhen government came knocking at the CUHK door in whatever it was, 2008, and said, we want a first-class research university in Shenzhen, can you help us develop one? They realized that research was the key to an excellent university. Every leader at CUHK Shenzhen has realized that as well. And the result is that our research has achieved a global level of excellence. I think that die has been cast. Okay, I think that we will continue to be good, excellent global scholars in our various disciplines. One of the reasons why CUHK Shenzhen has been able to do what it did in terms of taking off quickly is that we've used established connections. We brought a memory, we brought an existing set of relationships from Shatin, and we transplanted it to CUHK Shenzhen. So we are accredited, and we were able to do that. I mean, Michael Ferguson is the Associate Dean. He was able to use the same template that he used at CUHK, and he just flipped it into CUHK Shenzhen. So there was a memory, an understanding that I think was greater than that for other joint venture universities in China. Right, well, the Global Supply Chain and Logistics Management Program was set up the same year as the university was set up. And that was able to be accomplished because basically we took a template from CUHK in Shatin and we just flipped it into CUHK in Shenzhen. And we used existing contacts that CUHK Shatin had set up with Copenhagen Business School and UBC. And we said, look, we're the same people. All we've done is just moved across the border, and we'll do the same program or the same kind of program. And you know that we're reliable. And our university will be a first-class university, even though right now we're just in some factory buildings that have been converted. So there was a little bit of, what can I say, a little bit of magic that was being done that allowed us to roll out that program in the first year. Yeah, I mean, CUHK Shenzhen is international in two aspects. One is that the student body, and I mean the domestic Chinese student body, is international in outlook. They're international by choice. They come from all over China, and they come down to Shenzhen. I'm not sure exactly why each of them made that choice, but on balance, they come to a city which is the most international in China. This differs slightly from the CUHK students in Shatin. They're global in outlook by birth. Okay, they were born in a global city. Hong Kong is a very global city. They come by that naturally. But many of them don't really choose it. You know, basically, many of them are quite conservative. They'd like things to stay the way they are. They don't see themselves as launching themselves onto the global stage. So that's one of the aspects of the international outlook. The other aspect is, of course, our programs. And you mentioned the exchange students, the cohort programs, and the local students, that is to say, they're CUHK Shenzhen students, but they've been recruited from various parts of the world, okay? So those contribute to an international flavor of the campus as well. I hope that those two can mesh. Obviously, students tend to mix with the group that they are most comfortable with, and that means you do have these cliques that form. And so if I were giving advice to students, both the foreign students that come in and the domestic Chinese students that are, I would say, as much as possible, try to find out about the other. Because CUHK Shenzhen does offer the opportunity to find out about the other. Whether it's among the student body here or with the exchange programs where our students then go overseas. And many of our students have that opportunity and take that opportunity. So it's this advice to step outside of your comfort zone to learn about the rest of the world through personal experience. So one of the ways that CUHK Shenzhen is part of the world is obviously our academic excellence. So where are we trying to publish our articles, our academic articles? It's in the same places as the people that are in UK or Denmark or the United States or Canada, the same place that they're trying to publish. So we can understand this common objective. If you can co-author with somebody in another location, that's a good way to understand how people in the other locations deal with things, understand things. So that's sort of one step. And so joint research and joint scholarship is an extremely important way to go forward. For students, I mentioned, if you can exchange, right? If you can talk with foreign students that are here, talk with them. If you can show them things about neat stuff about Shenzhen or China, then show them, so being open-minded and being open in your circle of friends. So you open yourself to others. Being slightly more outgoing than perhaps you would be normally. And listening to their stories. Because our understanding of the world is nothing more than a whole string of stories that we tell. So if you can understand what their stories are, then you're one step with one person closer to being able to understand how they think, and so you can establish those deals, research projects, plans for win-win, for mutual benefit.